book of Amos, chapter 3, and verse number 3, the Scriptures translation says, "How can two walk together without having met?" A wise man that I know in Jerusalem says, according to the Hebrew, that the actual translation is closer to, "How can two walk together without having a common destiny?" Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 4, the Torah portion, Teitze, which means when you go out. The book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter number 22, there are many issues that are raised, among which we read in verse number 9, "Do not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seed, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled." Then verse number 10, "Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together." Exactly what are we talking about here? Well, one of the cardinal sins that Israel was accused of oftentimes was the sin of mixture. Especially the house of Israel, that is the 10 northern tribes, after they had separated from Rehoboam during the reign of Jeroboam. You will find that the sin of mixture was a syncretization or a synchronizing of the worship of Yahweh with calf worship. And unfortunately, priests were raised up that were able to blend these two forms of worship and make it a single cohesive unit, wrongly so. It was still idolatry, no matter they were employing the name Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Nonetheless, because it was defiled with calf worship, it is still considered idolatry, and Yah rejected it. However, according to the Torah here, there is a problem with being unequally yoked. Now, if we were to go to 2 Corinthians chapter number 6 and begin reading with verse number 14, we're going to find Rav Shaul's writings on this subject. "Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? And what agreement has Messiah with Belial? And what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the dwelling place of Elohim with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Elohim, as Elohim has said, 'I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.'" So the instruction then concludes with, "Come out from among them and be separate," not mixed, separate, says Yahweh, "and do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you. I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Almighty." So this principle is that you do not take two different kinds of animals and plow together. You do not sow your seed or different kinds of seed in the same field. That is mixing them together. I am not enough of a farmer to understand exactly why certain things don't grow well together. I have a small garden outside my window, immediately to my right as I record. And there I have a small variety of vegetables. I don't have room for a lot. Got a few tomato plants, a few squash plants, a few cucumbers, etc. Last year, I found out that some of my plants didn't do well because there are certain types of plants that don't like each other. I had no idea. So a little research helped me to understand, don't plant this next to that. So I'm learning again the ability that my father has known and that I failed to fully glean from him. I wish Dad were still around with me to help me to lay out the garden correctly and get it done right. But Dad knew that there were certain things that needed to be planted in certain places. When it comes to, however, an ox and a donkey plowing together, well, there is just some physical things that are a problem. Obviously, they're two different sized animals. They have two different kinds of strength. They have a different gait. One moves in one pattern and one tempo of a walk, and the other another type of gait and walk. And so with this differences of size, pace, strengths, it means that the yoke that ties the two of them together so that they would plow together, they're going to end up getting chafed, and they're not going to enjoy working together. So Yah says, don't mix it up. Now, that's on the practical part. And there is just, if there was nothing other than the practical part here, it is a command that we would observe. But I think that there's more to it than that. Especially as Rav Shaul is helping us to understand, some people just don't belong together. Now, obviously, we're not to enter into covenant-style relationships with those that are not covenant people. How many times have you and I known someone, especially young women, it seems to be the case with them, that they're going to marry someone who does not believe and worship as they do, but they have this idea, they love me enough that they'll change. I'm not going to force it on them, but my influence over them, they'll come around and they'll worship with me. Years and years later, children are born and they're divided because one spouse stays home or is believing and practicing one way, and another spouse is going in a different direction. I have seen it uncountable number of times. You do not enter into a covenant relationship with someone who does not agree with you, who does not have a common destiny that you do, thinking that I will change them. It is wrong for us to think we will change anyone. It is the influence of the Ruach HaKodesh that brings about change in people's lives. Well, I will be used as a servant. It doesn't work that way. So save yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of pain, but just watching who you enter into covenant relationship with, contractual relationships, business relationships, that may be different. Then again, maybe it's not. Be careful about who you do business with. I do not invite just everyone to my home to sit at my Shabbat table. Now, if someone's hungry, I'll sit with them, I'll feed them, I'll pay for their meal. I'll bring them in, sit at my table, and are you hungry? Well, let's eat. But when it comes to Shabbat, the Shabbat meal is not an ordinary supper. It is a covenant meal. And so those who sit with me in covenant at my Shabbat table, I'm selective. I'm not trying to be mean, not trying to be rude, but you just don't, I just don't believe you do that. And that's me. You may be different in that, and that's fine. But let's also understand this. It's not always a sin issue. There are times that we just have differences of vision. There are those of us that we were a part of a group, and for whatever reason, we've gotten culled out or moved out. The Ruach kind of led us somewhere else. We're doing something a little different. There's no need to be combative against those that we used to be a part with or walk with if our paths have separated. It could be just that we don't fit in the yoke well enough to walk together and to pull the same load. It could be a difference of vision. It could be a difference of personality. It could be a difference of pace. Some people are just running straight on as hard as they can go, and others feel like, I need to show some caution here. I need to pull back and look for some wisdom. Not everybody's comfortable with a scriptural focus in one arena, and it needs to be in another arena. So if someone is a part of our congregation and they love us and leave, the tendency is to get disappointed, yes, and to feel abandoned and shunned, but that's not necessarily necessary. Be wise and just understand, sometimes Yah moves people apart to grow them separately, because perhaps the germination of their seeds that are in the ground takes a different pace and a different time. Well, let's walk together as much as possible. We do have a common destiny. More tomorrow. See you then.